Now it's time for illuminating discussion on today's trending topics. It's Just Us with Portia Bright.
Hello and welcome to another showing of Just Us, and I'm your host Portia Bright, and I'm sitting along with the Honorable Erica Smith-Ingram. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you, Portia?
I am wonderful. I'm so glad you decided to sit down with us today. So much to talk about.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot going on in the North Carolina Senate.
Yes, ma'am. Now tell us what district you represent.
I represent Senate District 3, which is 8 counties in eastern North Carolina, and I love to list them because I'm proud to serve everybody that is in those 8 counties. And so we have Bertie, Chowan, Edgecombe, Hertford, Martin, Northampton, Terrell, and Washington counties.
I always get tickled every time we're in a meeting together and I hear you name out all your counties because you're the only one that really does that. From the meetings that I've been into anyway.
And I do that because all of my counties matter. The counties that I serve are all Tier 1 counties, and they haven't always received the attention that they deserve. Mm-hmm. So every opportunity that I get to mention their names, I call out my county's names.
Oh. Senator Smith-Ingram, your rural district took the biggest hit when the Senate was making budget cuts. How do you feel about that?
2 of the early colleges, one was in Northampton County and one was located in Washington County. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the background on this, but cooperative and innovative high schools have been in existence for 11 years in North Carolina. And what these high schools are so instrumental in doing is that many times they take first-generation college students, they expose them to community college opportunities so that they graduate. They have that high school diploma in one hand, they have a certification in the other hand, and they are well on their way to becoming career or college ready. Many of them graduate with an associate's degree, and that's what you call making college affordable.
Yes.
So for those who move on to the four-year university, they've already gotten 2 years of college taken care of.
And that's something that we actually need to look forward to in the future, especially with the millennials. Already having a degree by the time you graduate high school will get you well on into a career as you're working on that second degree and possibly moving on to a possible doctorate degree.
Absolutely. And so for the first time in the 11 years that these cooperative and innovative high schools have been funded, in 2016, the Senate did not fund the cooperative and innovative high schools. And so that is particularly devastating in Tier 1 counties who don't have the resources or the access to be able to fund those programs. That $316,000 appropriation is instrumental in getting the college liaison because you have students who are exposed to college for the first time. But be that as it may, we have been working on this since 2016, and I've had some courageous conversations with House and even our own Senate leadership, and I have some strong commitments to making sure that's in the final budget.
Wow, and let's get on into the budget. Now, we're faced with a host of dilemmas right now. We have the Republicans trying to dictate who the governor can have in his cabinet, and then we're faced with the governor's budget versus the Senate budget. What can North Carolina actually look forward to in the future?
Okay, well, in looking forward to the future, we first have to have our eyes wide open. You know that old adage, stay woke?
Yes.
And you better watch because these numbers are very telling. When we look at the Senate budget, there's almost $1 billion of tax cuts and credits to the wealthy. And anytime you have that level of cuts to the wealthy, you know who is going to suffer. What is very problematic is when we're looking at some of these cuts that have nothing to do with the state budget. We knocked off 133,000 North Carolinians from the SNAP program. The SNAP program is totally 100% federally funded.
Yes.
And so 51,000 of that 133 are children who can least speak up for themselves. And so as we are looking to the future of North Carolina, when we're looking at the rural areas where we come from and where we grew up, and we know those areas are underserved, they're underdeveloped, they're under-resourced. And so if we do not rectify that problem and start modifying the formula so that they work better in the rural parts of the state as well as the urban, what we're going to look look forward to is we may not be able to see a strong North Carolina at all. We're going to see an ever widening divide between the rural and the urban communities. You're going to see a significant loss of population, loss of opportunities, and so really it depends on which side of the fence you're looking from, because if you're in the rural area, you don't have much to look forward to, and that is what is disappointing in this budget. That's why I am standing up, I'm advocating, I am promoting this information, and I thank you for this opportunity because this helps get the word out. We have got to get engaged so that together we can work to re-engineer and promote what we want our future in North Carolina to look like.
Oh, wow. You're always so touching with me. Tell me this. What can someone look forward to if they're interested in running for office? Because you've been a leader. I mean, you've always inspiring young people. What can you offer?
Well, you know, I always talk about, instead of sitting back and cursing the darkness, we need to strike a match and light the candle. And I'm not sure who said that, but it was something that has always inspired me to realize, like President Obama said, be the change that you want to see. So what I would hope is that we would have people from our areas in the rural parts, even in the western part of the state as well as the eastern part of the state. We need to engage millennials and people on the local level to run for office, run for the sanitation board, run to get appointed to the economic development board. If we want economic development in our area, let's, get up off our seats, stand up on our feet, hit the streets, and do all that we can to empower people in our communities who are from our communities, who understand our communities, to start advocating. And the important thing that we need to understand how a bill becomes a law, how advocacy works. And so I am working now with groups of high school students and college students through my former LA legislative assistant, Angelicia Simmons. She has the Fannie Lou Hamer Institute for Social Change. And one of the projects that we're trying to do is engage civically high school students and college students so that they can be ready to run on the local level and start there and work your way up, because that's what worked for me. It helped me learn how to negotiate, how to work, how to advocate, how to write policy and make sure that it gets implemented.
You're on so many different things taking place. I mean, you're on this board, that board. I mean, you have your personal life. How do you juggle all of that?
I always let people know I have an identical twin sister, and the only way to tell us apart is I have a mole. Well, I like to call it a beauty mark, but I wish I could use my twin in so many places. But when you find your passion, it doesn't feel like work. And when you know what your calling is, it empowers you to be able to do all that you need to do. Because I am so passionate and I'm operating in the creator's assignment for me, this has been the easiest job that I have had, and that is advocating for the people that I serve. So the way I find the balance is, I make sure that I meditate in the morning.
That's important.
And that's so important to have myself spiritually together. I have surrounded myself with a great team, great staff, who make sure that I show up to appointments on time. And I pledged Delta Sigma Theta undergrad, and it was so funny they called me the Renaissance woman. that was my line name because it was either Jack, because I was a jack of all trades. And so one of the things that I've always been passionate about is multitasking, exploring all of my interests at one time, because you know what, they're all interlinked. Just like education is linked to economic development, which is linked to having the infrastructure in place, and because you need those skills when it comes to being a legislator, this is just empowering me to strengthen those skills by continuing to engage in the social community service, the Christian organizations that I'm in. So I definitely find strength.
If you were in leadership, what changes would you make in the rural districts to build them up?
Well, one thing I would always start with is a re-engineering approach. Of course, I spent 10 years in private and government industry as an engineer, and so I understand that from time to time our systems need to be recalibrated for the times to optimize our formulas and how they're working. Many times we use formulas here in Raleigh that don't work well when you're looking at rural areas in eastern and western North Carolina. Particularly, I would start off with our infrastructure. You know, the way that roads are paved, we had a STIP formula that was heavily weighted toward congestion. Now, Portia, you know we're not going to have congestion out in eastern North Carolina, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't have roads paved and the infrastructure that will make companies want to come. And so I would start off re-engineering and understanding that in order to have economic development, we need to be able to have access to a skilled workforce, number one, but we also, those companies need the infrastructure in place. And when I'm talking about infrastructure, I'm not just talking about roads. We need to make sure we have adequate appropriations for broadband expansion. There is 21st century job, workforce, community looks forward to telecommuting, even work at home options, and certainly because the urban has such an increase in population, the eastern parts and the rural parts are wonderful communities to live in with the convenience, though, of being able to telecommute. So you need the broadband. We need to invest in our water systems. We need to invest in downtown revitalization. Because what company wants to come when it looks like you're at a ghost town and that everybody has left and somebody forgot to turn the lights out? I would also look at understanding our incentives as a state to promote economic development. We have a couple of programs, one NC that works with small businesses. We also have JDIGs, Jobs Development Investment Grants. If you look at the last, in 2015 of JDIG projects, $77 million went to Tier 3 counties. And 75% of all JDIG projects went to Tier 3 and our urban centers. And where do you need those jobs the most? You need them in the Tier 1 counties. And so what I'm excited about is there was a bill sponsored by Harry Brown, and I co-sponsored that bill that would place a cap of 50% of the JDIG projects that can go to Tier 3 counties. That way Tier 1 and Tier 2 can have a better opportunity to access those companies. And so I think I would summarize it by saying, as a math teacher, when you're doing a problem in calculus, it is no one size fits all. When you do the integration, you got to look at your upper limits and you got to look at your lower limits, and you got to make sure that formula can perform within that range. And so if I had my druthers and if I had the pen and if I were in leadership, I would make sure we had more educational opportunities for a skilled workforce, which will come through CTE programming, cooperative innovative high schools, also our community colleges. So I definitely support the governor on free community college, NC Grow, getting ready for opportunities in the workforce. So I would definitely promote that. I would also invest in infrastructure, and I would also tweak the formulas so that they work better in rural North Carolina.
Now, for the people at home, and I know that you're like me, math is definitely not my subject at all, so I won't even front on that one. Could you please explain between Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3?
Yes, okay. So Tier 1 are the most economically, it's 40 of the most economically distressed counties.
Okay.
Bertie County, Tyrrell County, they're always at the bottom, either 1, 2, or 3 most economically distressed in the state. Tier 2 is the second 40 set of counties who are not as economically distressed as Tier 1. And so that's 40 and 40, that's 80. We have 100 counties. The 20 remaining counties are all Tier 3. And those are your Wake counties, your Mecklenburg, your Durham counties that have significant opportunity, population growth. They are our urban centers. And incidentally, Guilford County dropped from Tier 3 to Tier 2.
Okay.
And so there are other areas across our state that are struggling, and now with changing JDIG and making sure 50% of those projects go to Tier 1 or Tier 2, that will be so advantageous and making sure we can get some economic development in our area.
And that's what we need.
That's what
and
we
we'll
need.
wrap that up today. Senator Smith-Ingram, how can we reach you?
Yes, you
Social
can
media?
reach me. My Twitter handle is Smith-Ingram NC. And we're very active on that. My Facebook is Smith-Ingram for ncsenate.com. And we post regularly to keep our people up to date. And on Thursdays, we have a Facebook Live post where I do the top 3 for Senate District 3.
Oh, wow.
And I take 3 minutes to capture what has gone on for the week.
Nice. Follow her. And make sure you check us out next time. You never know who may be sitting in the seat.